And I had a nurse nurses at Walter Reed Hospital who would bend down and whisper in my ear. And go home and get me pillows. They would make sure they'd actually, probably nothing ever taught in, you can't do it in the COVID time, but they'd actually breathe in my nostrils to make me move, to get me moving.
They thought he was dead. And a house cat. The two things they thought. When I heard the pillow, I had a flashback to Godfather Part 2 in Havana, you know. Bringing the pillow into the old guy's hospital bed usually doesn't go very well. And the gunfire erupts. You know the routine. Well, happy Monday to you and welcome back. It is July 1st, 2024 AD, Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. It's a good calendar. The government doesn't use it. They use a different calendar. October, September, whatever. That's because we live in a kakistocracy, don't we? We live in a kakistocracy. It's fun pinging back and forth with a friend at Newsmax, JT. And you should know, he said, well, we're living in a kakistocracy today. So you're right, JT. We do live in a kakistocracy. And I will confess, I quickly looked up kakistocracy. I've seen the word before, but not in a long, long time. And it's absolutely true. The Oxford English Dictionary, kakistocracy with K's, of course, because it's Greek, K-A-K-I. Stocracy, it's the kakistocracy. And that is government by the least suitable or competent citizens of a state. That's a very handy word right now. That's good stuff. A state or society governed by its least suitable or least competent citizens. The modern regime is at once a plutocracy and a kakistocracy, the Oxford English Dictionary says here. Plutocracy, of course, government by the rich, by the super rich, the plutocracy, the plutocrats. And then the kakistocracy, government by societies or the state's least suitable, least competent people. And that appears to be where we are now, since not a Dr. Jill Biden is actually apparently in charge of the government right now. Isn't that remarkable? Yes, it is. And we are standing by because the Supreme Court has 3 decisions yet to hand down today, and we're standing by for them. We're expecting them any minute. They just came to life at the Supreme Court a few minutes ago. And apparently there's only one protester out front today, We're expecting the big decision on presidential immunity that they say is all about Trump, but it's about presidential immunity and much more broadly. And it does pertain to President Trump and at least one of the lynch mobs that the Democrats have unleashed on their political enemy, who they're trying to put in prison like the banana-eating third worlders that they are. But setting that aside, we're standing by you. There's one protester out front. It's a woman, apparently, and I'm told she's very enthusiastic, but not a big crowd. Usually the left has a big crowd of mentally ill people out there. They call them voters. They call them their base. But today they've apparently got one woman, maybe more will be showing up, because they don't really come in the Supreme Court until 10 a.m. And you know how drug addicted, I don't want to say street prostitutes, I'll just say Democrats, they like to sleep in and show up late and all that. So they might show up late. But they got to look out. The Supreme Court police have to keep their eyes peeled, because every now and then Democrats set themselves on fire, self-immolate. They had one 2 years ago on Earth Day that self-immolated at the Supreme Court because he was very upset about the climate and he was angry about people putting smoke into the atmosphere. So naturally, he doused himself in gasoline and self-immolated and killed himself in the name of saving the planet from people that put smoke in the air by putting smoke in the air. And it was his own every day's an IQ test. Remarkable people, aren't they? Yes, they are. But we do have, we've got 3 verdicts. The one that everyone is anticipating very eagerly, the presidential immunity case. And we should have that for you. Michael and I were talking. You think they're going to release that one last or release that one first? because they've got the three things, right? That's right. And I think if it were me, I assume John Roberts makes the call here, Chief Justice of the United States, and if it were me, I'd say let's save the presidential immunity for last. People last week were like, oh, so you're going to drop this decision before the debate on Thursday? Going to save it till after the debate on Friday? And then only on Friday did we learn. Normally, they'd be out of session. They'd be done by now. But they extended it by one day, the term of the Supreme Court, to release, make public these last three decisions on this Monday, July 1st, which is very unusual. But we're going to get then. I think you save the immunity for last. I think what is there are a couple others there, an environmental thing, and nobody's too interested in the other ones because while they're fun, they're not that much fun. Know what I'm talking about? Yes, sir. But the Supreme Court, the sidewalk, largely quiet at 9 a.m. on Monday. That's today. Only swarming camera crews offered a clue that the court would be releasing its final decisions of the session. And they've got loony, crazy person out there, but they're happy about that. Wrapping up the term Monday with two momentous decisions, whether former President Donald Trump can be prosecuted for his efforts to block Joe Biden's 2020 election victory, which he didn't do, and whether states, specifically Texas and Florida, can restrict social media companies from removing certain political posts or accounts. Censorship. The Democrats love censorship. They love crushing your right to free speech and the First Amendment because, that opens the gate to trashing the entire Bill of Rights and the Constitution and destroying America, which is the goal of the left. And now the left has taken over the Democrat Party. The rulings will cap a term marked by new conservative limits on the power of regulatory agencies, meaning the federal government, and restoring power to individuals, people, we the people, the taxpayers, the voters. We're the people that are supposed to be running this country, not you fascists, just by the way. And a fresh round of ethics scandals for the justices. That's a lie. A lie. This is the Washington Post. The Washington Post, and that's it's fabricated. That's a lot of hooey. That's left-wing propaganda. Part of, it's kind of interesting because the lives of Supreme Court justices have never been in danger in the United States until just a couple of years ago when the Democrat Party decided to make that a new reality in the United States of America. Gotcha. You're a Democrat Party. Amazing stuff. So, waiting that the first of the three final rulings to be released this morning is about the statute of limitations to challenge fees that retailers can be charged by banks for debt card transactions. Now, how that one made it to the Supreme Court, I don't know. But that case is also going to be announced today. The decision, the verdict will be announced today. And what is that? The Corner Post versus the Federal Reserve. Not a big case, not one that I've been eagerly anticipating, nor has anyone. A few people have, no doubt, but that's about it. Okay, so we've got that. We're standing by for verdicts coming out of the Supreme Court and the immunity case in particular. I would save that one for last if I were Justice Roberts, but that's me. I love a parade, and I love a fun Supreme Court ruling, and have a good time with it. Now, with that said, the Democrats have decided that Joe Biden is their guy again. On Friday, he wasn't their guy. Then on Saturday, he became their guy again. And Sunday on the talk shows, he's their guy all the way. And they're pretending, and it is a big game of make-believe, that he's somehow saving democracy and saving the country, and they're pretending that he's done a great job as president. What with the wars and the hundreds of thousands dead and the hostages being held by Hamas and not lifting a finger, and there are no peace talks going on for Ukraine or for the Middle East. because he's a total failure and a disaster, and he's been wrong about everything on foreign policy for many decades now. Robert Gates, former defense secretary, White House, big wig, CIA director, famously said Joe Biden's been wrong about every foreign policy decision for 40 years. And I think he said that 10 years ago. So, Joe Biden has now been wrong about every foreign policy decision for about 50 years. And he's a complete numbskull, a dimwit, an idiot, the head of a kakistocracy in the United States of America, ruled by the least competent people that we have. It's an extraordinary time to be an American. And our news media, the filthiest, most corrupt institution in the United States of America. Aren't they amazing? Yes, they are. And so we got that. Now, Nancy Pelosi and the whole gang. Let's go to a telephone call, Michael. And I want to get to a lot of different things here because there are a lot of things to get to. For example, Dr. Jill Biden will be appearing on the cover of Vogue magazine coming out today. Another cover story for not a Dr. Jill Biden, who is one of the corrupt participants in the kakistocracy as well. Remarkable stuff. But she is on the cover of Vogue magazine today, a cover girl that she is. And still, Melania Trump, no cover stories on a single magazine, being First Lady for 4 years and internationally renowned fashion model. The most beautiful First Lady we've ever had, dressing beautifully, presents perfectly, and not one magazine cover for her 4 years or since. Not a single magazine cover for her. But Jill Biden, fine. Another cover story because the propaganda apparatus of the Soviet Union, the Democratic Party, the propaganda apparatus of the Democrat Party in the United States is unparalleled, I would say, in human history. No propaganda apparatus has ever been contrived that can even compare to the Democrat Party's propaganda apparatus of 2024. From Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert to Saturday Night Live to The View to CNN and MSNBC to ABC, CBS, NBC, Network News, The Washington Post, The New York Times. The list goes on and on and on. The propaganda capabilities of the Democrat Party are unparalleled in human history. And they get to tell you that, no, everything's fine with it. On Friday, he's got to go. On Saturday, he's got to stay. And they do that without missing a beat, without batting an eye. Isn't that extraordinary? Let's go to a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Ivan calling from Miramar Beach, Florida. Ivan, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm great.
Hey, listen, Chris, Kamala, as it turns out, Kamala's a prophet. We just didn't understand her, Chris. After the disastrous debate, I'm sorry, you say that. my friend Fred texted me, and he said, "I am happy to be unburdened by what has been, because what has been burdensome." And Chris, the whole country right now, we can all be unburdened by what has been the last 3 years of the Joe Biden administration. Kamala was a prophet, and we just didn't give her due credit. Chris, can you imagine if you were a fly on the wall between the word salads from Kamala and the tongue talking from Joe? Can you imagine what those conversations look like in the White House? All right, Chris.
Thanks, Ivan. That should be the stuff of Saturday Night Live and late night TV. But because they are so immersed in the propaganda effort, and you're right, she's another prophet. They got a lot of prophets, David Hogg is their child prophet on guns and the Second Amendment. He has no idea what he's talking about on anything. And of course, Greta von Thunberg, she's their prophet of doom on the climate, the weather. They have prophets. It is a pseudo-religion, a quasi-religion after all.
How dare you?
And Kamala, she really, she's all over the truth in the kakistocracy.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been.
Yeah.
What can be, unburdened by what has been.
What can be, unburdened by what has been.
I hope that we can be unburdened by what has been when we get rid of these idiots and the Biden kakistocracy. You know, we're seeing surprising shifts in America's political landscape, you may have noticed, and it's urgent that you be prepared. The presidential race is heating up, you may have noticed, and you need to take action to help protect your finances regardless of who wins the election this year. And that's where investing in precious metals comes in. Gold. You know gold. It's beautiful. It's almost always been throughout human history a hedge against economic and political uncertainty. And when it comes to gold, I recommend reaching out to my trusted friends at Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold. All you have to do is text my first name, Chris, to 888-255-0668. And you're going to get a free 2024 gold and silver kit. Plus, you mention this ad, and you see if you qualify for a special $1,300 bonus, $1,300 bonus. Make sure to take the steps that you need to take to keep your finances on solid ground as the political landscape changes beneath our feet. So call 1-888-255-0668. Call them now. That's 888-255-0668. Message and data rates may apply. Performances may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Yes, sir. Yeah, Kamala, she's a prop. They're all prophets. They're all minor prophets. David Hogg, Greta Van Thunberg, they use children. Then they, at the end, what usually happens is they sacrifice them and throw them into the volcano.
The ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been.
We have verdicts from the Supreme Court, not the big one impacting President Trump. When it comes to presidential immunity, as I predicted in my Nostradamus-like way, the Supreme Court will release that. That'll be their final verdict handed down of this session of the Supreme Court. But we do have a verdict out of an important case having to do with Florida and Texas and social media and censorship. And the Supreme Court has come down today on the side of free speech and the First Amendment, and on the side of not trampling free speech because the internet has led to a new era of censorship, the likes of which we've never seen before in the United States. And a bunch more protesters have showed up at the Supreme Court rolling out of bed, stoned, smelling badly, somebody else's bed. They don't know whose. And we'll update you on that and the big decision coming up. Well, we now have the big verdict out of the Supreme Court. And gosh, it is a win for President Trump. It is a win for presidential immunity. It is just about what the smart people expected it to be, the legal scholars and so on, that as president of the United States, you don't have total immunity. You can't really shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue like Joe Biden did the other day. I know he didn't really, but it doesn't matter. It's, politics. Say whatever you want. And as a president, you have immunity when it comes to prosecution, criminal or civil, for acts that are performed, committed, perpetrated while you are president of the United States in the name of carrying out your duties as president. You enjoy effectively total legal immunity. You're insulated from legal liability. Now, when it comes to things that are not official acts, then you are not privileged to total immunity from the law, and you can't just go around breaking the law, because the Immunity Act protects you as president in performance of your duties, but not everything you do in your personal and private life. Now, the question becomes with President Trump, and apparently it now gets kicked back because the Supreme Court has ruled on presidential immunity. And prosecutors going after Trump have said, well, no, he doesn't have any immunity at all, and we can prosecute him for whatever we want. Now the question becomes, what was an official act as president and what was not an official act that was performed, I think might be the right word, as president. So remarkable stuff going on in Washington, D.C. today. Now, the Supreme Court on their website, they got a SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States acronym. Everything is an acronym. You got POTUS, the President of the United States, and FLOTUS, the First Lady of the United States, and the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. And I find all of it to be just a little bit annoying, but the president's exercise of his core constitutional powers, this immunity must be absolute. As for his remaining official actions, he is entitled to at least presumptive immunity. All right? And then they go to Article 2 of the Constitution, vesting executive power in a president of the United States of America. And the president has duties of unrivaled gravity and breadth. And in Trump versus Vance, they cite the case number. His authority to act necessarily stem either from an act of Congress or from the Constitution itself. And it is a lengthy verdict, a great many pages long. But the bottom line is it is a win for President Trump in the context of the moment. And more broadly, a president does have immunity, does enjoy immunity from prosecution criminally or civilly when he is performing his or her official acts as President of the United States and Chief Executive under the Constitution, according to the Supreme Court. So that is a big win for President Trump, because it pertains specifically to events ongoing right now in the United States of America. And let's go. There's a former federal prosecutor who's a smart guy on these matters, and his name is Andrew McCarthy. Andrew McCarthy on the immunity ruling as it was breaking. And again, not everybody's in fact, nobody's had a chance, unless you're inside the court, to read the entire ruling and digest it all. So it's being taken in and synthesized as we go. Andrew McCarthy.
It looks like, at least within the bounds of clear executive authority, what Chief Justice Roberts is saying is that the president clearly has immunity from prosecution. So the question is going to be, what is an official act? There's going to be a lot of litigation about that, and what's close to the core of clear executive constitutional authority versus the outer ambit of it.
The outer ambit. What is an official act as president and what is not an official act as president? And as McCarthy said, now that will be hotly debated going forward, because we're nothing if not litigious. Am I right? And my friend and wonderful woman, Shannon Bream, who is a correspondent extraordinaire for the Fox News Channel and their Supreme Court correspondent. She is an attorney. And Shannon Bream this morning, as the verdict was just coming out.
So what it means now, we'll have to dig into this and see if they tell us now, how do you decide an official act versus an unofficial act? Because that's going to be critical, having now said the president does have absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. We'll dig in, see how they define those official acts, and look for a little bit more from you from the opinion. But at first blush, this looks like it is going to be a win for the argument for presidential immunity.
And for President Trump, by extension, and again, then the particulars will be contested, of course, because we got too many damn lawyers. And what is it that Shakespeare said about the lawyers? I don't think he was being literal. Do you think he was being literal? Kill all the lawyers first, but that. So that's the biggest decision today, of course, the big one, to be sure, and also the Corner Post Inc. versus Board of Governors decided, and the Moody v. Net Choice LLC decided, and they have the court has come down on the side of free speech and not censorship when it comes to the internet in the state of Texas and the state of Florida. Come down on the side of presidential immunity, which, it's in the middle of this Trump dust-up, but it's not really, specifically just all about Donald Trump. It is in the moment, but more broadly, it is about presidential immunity as a macro issue. So we got that going for us. And as we digest this, I'll be sharing more with you, but it is going to be considered a win for President Trump, and then the left will get back to finding new weaselly ways to contest, to bring out their sleazy Hunter Biden-like lawyers to set something on fire. Speaking of which, we haven't had any self-immolations at the Supreme Court yet, but there are now, I guess, dozens of protesters in front of the Supreme Court. They're lazy. It has to do with alcohol, drug intake, and various other things. But finally, some of them showed up. So we've got that, and it is all a big deal. Now let's take another phone call, Michael, and we've still got a lot to get to, having to do with various topics and violence by the Democrats and peeing on one another. That whole they love that idea, the fake pee tape, right, in Moscow that was in Hillary Clinton's dossier, which wasn't a dossier at all. It was just slimy political savagery, the usual stuff, and the pee tape out of Moscow, which never existed. There was never any reason to believe that it did exist. But Democrats in San Francisco peeing on each other in public over the weekend for Pride Week, because what's not to be proud of when you're doing that? I think we have some audio of that happening, of these people doing this to each other in San Francisco. And then the violent attack of the WNBA in New York, and we've got audio of that today too. Right now, let's take another phone call. Let's go to Dan, calling from Calvert County, Maryland. Daniel, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hello.
Hey, Dan.
Are we there?
Yes, sir, we are.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, good. It's so good to hear from you. I love your stuff. My question is, when the Biden family got together to talk about this business, did the idea of bidding out the agents that he holds for the election? I understand he controls the election with the number of delegates that he has. What do you think if he bidded them out? What do you think it would go for?
Well, that is, how much would they go for? Is that what you're asking? Like in Illinois when they were selling Barack Obama's Senate seat?
No, I'm thinking let's pick 3 or 4 people, Kamala and the fellow from California. The California people would bid, well, if you'll back us and give us your delegates,
right,
we'll give you this much money, versus Kamala's group.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom. Well, yeah, when they get to the convention, because, and I'm still, I still expect that the Democrats are going to do away with Joe Biden one way or the other.
Yes.
And you think that
no
too.
Question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then it comes down to Kamala or Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, from the teeth whitening ads, and he, or
Mr. Obama's wife,
or Big Mike. Yeah, Big Mike, as she's known. Michelle Obama. A lot of people call her Big Mike. There was a funny meme about a week ago of the Big Mike thing. I guess that was on Thursday, I think. Yeah, the Big Mike. But, Dan, that would become a brokered convention, and there would be a lot of horse trading and bartering, the news media would call it. And it would be backdoor. They're no longer smoke-filled rooms. Maybe they're like vape-filled rooms or something. But the Democrat Party bosses would decide who would give them the best chance of winning the election against Donald Trump. And they would choose in a backroom setting, and then they would just barter for. And you're right to ask the question, Dan, about how much money would change hands and who would be the big winner here, because Kamala is, of course, the backup quarterback next in line. And if they're going to sidestep her or steamroll her, they're going to have to find some way to appease her. and that would likely involve an enormous sum of money. You know, one of the stories bumping around Washington, Daniel, is that they want Sonia Sotomayor to step down from the Supreme Court, and if they could get her to announce she's stepping down and then announce Kamala her appointment to the Supreme Court, and then the room, because that's the greatest job in government, I think, the Supreme Court. Being a Supreme Court justice, I think, is the coolest job in all of the U.S. government, hands down. But the rumor is that she doesn't want to be on the Supreme Court, so she's going to dig her heels in and demand who knows what. And we probably, we may hear bits and pieces of that, but it's a very corrupt process. And if Joe Biden falls down a flight of stairs or finds himself in an iron lung, or if he's not available anymore, then the Democrat Party, corrupt as they are today, Dan, would be horse trading, and people would get rich, and they'd be bartering for power, power positions and power itself, and for money. But we probably wouldn't see a lot of that going on in the open spaces in the light of day. That'd be backroom stuff, right?
Yeah, they've established the fact that we Republicans are so foul and so very wicked in our ways that anything that they do is an attempt is there to save democracy.
That's right.
And so they're taking us out of the picture. I mean, all that started with Hillary and her deplorables. By any
means necessary, and whatever they do is justifiable, because they are the saviors of the universe, like in a cartoon, like in a comic book, and we are the supervillains, and we must be stopped. They are good, and we are bad. And then they club babies to death by the millions and harvest their organs, especially the black ones.
Terrible.
And they, bring the transgender lunatics into your kindergarten class and have them twerking in their faces. And they have after-school Satan Club, because they're the good guys and we're the bad guys, going to church and joining the military and becoming police officers.
Another point is this whole business of abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Abortion is what succeeded eugenics, replaced it. Instead of the state saying, we want to have good people, so we're going to keep poor people from having children, where they're saving and giving the right to the individual. And most of those individuals are not white people, they're black people, and they're working hard to keep control of the black community through abortions.
Well, it's only about a 40% abortion rate for African Americans. 400 out of every 1,000 pregnancies. But that makes the Democrats the good guys. The good guys. Yeah, these are strange times, Dan. I think you're onto them, and you're right to start asking questions about the horse trading, the bartering that would be going on when Joe Biden steps aside and the presidency on the Democrat side is in play. It's going to be an amazing thing to see. Now, they're lying to us today. They were lying to us on Friday about how Joe Biden's got to go. Then on Saturday, they started lying to us about how Joe Biden's got to stay. And so far, they're still with that. But they're such reptiles, like Chuck Schumer, the Lizard King, that they'll change again this afternoon and act like they haven't flip-flopped at all. And the news media will pretend along with them, because that's what they do. Amazing times. Stay tuned for our next exciting episode. All right, the headline from The Guardian in the United Kingdom, better than the American headlines. Supreme Court votes 6-3 along party lines to grant Trump some immunity. And that is fascinating. This is a case of elections have consequences, big time. Because the three leftist radicals, anti-Americans, should be impeached and probably jailed for their abuses of power. See, I don't actually believe any of that, but that's what the Democrats are saying every day now about members of the Supreme Court, that they're so filled with vitriol and hatred. Now, they got some dimwits. They got a woman that doesn't know what a woman is, and and they got the Jake LaMotta impersonator, Sonia Sotomayor. But the 3 Democrat nominees to the court all said no presidential immunity because Trump's name is on the case, and that's enough for them because they're political, hatchet girls for the Democrat Party, and they don't know what their gender is. At least one of them doesn't know what a woman is. So the Supreme Court has ruled that former presidents, including but not limited to Donald Trump, are entitled to some degree of immunity from criminal prosecution, dramatically reducing the likelihood that the federal criminal case against Donald Trump on charges he plotted to stop the transfer of power will proceed before the 2024 election. The court's conservative majority, which Trump helped create, they actually wrote that, and it's true, President Trump, this is a classic case of elections have consequences. President Trump, and also Mitch McConnell, the turtle boy, he gets big brownie points for this because he did the right thing again and again when it came to the Supreme Court and federal court slots. Amazing stuff. But President Trump with Brett Kavanaugh, remember what the slime balls did to him? What a bunch of creeps and liars. Where's that lunatic anyway, with her scratchy glasses and 2 front doors and won't fly on planes unless you send a private jet? Got Brett Kavanaugh, and where's that assassin that showed up outside of his house who was going to murder 3 Supreme Court justices? Amazing stuff. Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, thanks to President Trump, and honestly, thanks to the turtle, Mitch McConnell, as well. Elections do indeed have consequences, and this is a big one. And the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, the left, they were very comfortably smug about their dominance on the Supreme Court for a long, long time. And they drove everything into the courts because they don't believe in legislation and branches of government and passing laws. They just want to steamroll and steal power and crush their enemies. Speaking of which, Steve Bannon, I think, is supposed to report to prison today.